Welcome to Elcom's Video Interface Edition 26. A slight change in branding, you'll have noticed. Previously, it's only been Lantex customers that have received video interface, but with the Elcom group of companies expanding so rapidly in the UK, and now also including AMA, Portable Computers, Lantex Distribution, and the Technical Services Group, we decided it was time to widen the scope of the video. So welcome to customers of those companies as well. Also, in addition, you'll be seeing some digitised excerpts from video interface in Lantex and indeed all those other companies' PCOS electronic catalogues. Steve Smith, unfortunately, can't be with us today. He's ill. We wish him well, and we look forward to seeing him back here on the next edition. So you have the company of myself and Victoria Farmer today. We're going to hark back to start off with to an item that we showed in video interface a couple of editions ago. Paul Burwood from Hewlett-Packard was with us, and he mentioned the concept of mopping or moppying, which is printing multiple original copies rather than photocopying. He's back here to tell us more. Welcome, Paul.
Hello, Steve. Thanks for asking me back.
It's a pleasure. Just remind us what moppying is all about, would you, Paul?
Okay, well, the concept of mopping is very, very simple, and you've probably explained the idea behind it already. What we're asking people to think about is, having invested in a sophisticated laser printer, why not use that machine to produce multiple original copies? Now, we have one slide, and the only one I promise I'll use today, which actually shows this concept. You have down here the digital office that you would see in a typical environment with networked peripherals, so PCs, scanners, printers, etc. And what we're saying to people is, why not use that equipment to make multiple original copies rather than making one copy, picking it up, walking across the office to the photocopier, and then producing second-hand copies. There are a number of advantages in doing that for the users. The first one, of course, is that they get original quality time after time after time. So everybody on the distribution list gets a high quality original document.
Right.
The second thing, of course, is that from Hewlett-Packard's point of view, we actually feel that it's going to be a slightly cheaper way for people to get many multiple original copies. And the reason we say that is you get around the frustrations that you've typically had with the photocopier, where you waste a lot of time. So people have argued that the cost of ownership on a laser printer is actually more expensive than that of a photocopier. Now, we've done our own research into this, and we found that the cost of running a laser printer is actually very comparable with running a photocopier, and in some cases it's actually cheaper.
Right.
The thing is, though, if we now look at the cost of printing versus the cost of photocopying, then it's actually very different. If you look at the fact that if you sit at your desk and you use your mouse to make multiple original copies, you can ask the machine, the printer, to get on doing the printing, and you can get on with another job. However, in the photocopying model, you pick this up, walk often down the corridor, and you come up with all the frustrations of the photocopier. So if the engineer hasn't got his head inside it, there's potentially a queue. You have to wait in the queue. You might find it's out of toner or out of paper. You might unfortunately find that somebody's left it set up on a job such that when you start yours, you're finding it's coming out single-sided or double-sided with or without staples, which isn't really what you wanted, so you have to cancel it and start again. If you couple that, Steve, with the fact that most people actually stop for an extra cup of coffee at the machine on the way down the corridor or talk to one of their friends, the time taken to photocopy actually makes the whole photocopying sort of function quite an expensive one compared to that of printing.
Okay, I'll take you up on this point of time though, Paul, because if say I've got I want 6 copies of a 6-page document, and I send that from my PC, 6 6s is 36, that's going to actually tie my PC up for considerably longer, so I'm going to stop working anyway, surely. Yeah,
now that is a traditional problem of spooling print jobs from a PC across a network to the network server and then onto your printer. The beauty about the new machine that we're going to be talking about a bit later is that we've actually designed it and optimized it for the mopping function. You're correct that we used to send the data across the network, in your example, 6 times. However, with the Mopier machine, what we now do is we send the data across the network once. It goes onto a hard disk drive, which is actually inside the printer, and the printer then takes over and produces the 6 copies.
Right.
Now, there's 2 big advantages here. The first one is to the network or the MIS manager. And originally you would have seen 6 packets of data going across the network. Now you only see 1. So they've actually got a printer here from Hewlett-Packard that reduces the amount of network traffic. That allows other users to use the network. It doesn't get so clogged up and probably works very slightly faster.
Right.
The benefit to the end user, of course, is that you're only going to spool this data once. So the nice thing is that you're going to return your PC back to the application such that you can get on with another function and be more efficient. So that old way of working in terms of spooling the data many times has now gone away.
Right, okay. Let's compare photocopiers and the Mopier as in other ways. Photocopiers collate, and they staple, and they double side, and so on. Does your machine do all this as well?
Okay, well, most of the Hewlett-Packard range does the duplexing or the double side printing.
Right.
This machine is no exception. It has a duplexer as a standard option. However, what is also interesting is you've talked about collating. This particular machine has 6 output boxes which allow you to collate documents. So we could, for example, have all of page 1 coming out in the first output bin, all of page 2 in the second, etc.
Right.
Or you could produce collated copies, i.e. pages 1 to 6, for example, in box 1. The second document would come out in box 2, etc.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing and the advantage that we've brought to this particular area over traditional photocopiers is because this particular machine is going to be on the network, you can define those output boxes not by collated copies, but actually by people in your office. So this is quite interesting because, as you're probably familiar with, one of the frustrations of network printing, everybody prints to the printer. You then have to go and rummage in that top box to find your particular
my
print.
email, yes,
Exactly.
yes, that I want to print or whatever. Yeah.
However, if you had a Mopier in your office, Steve, what you'd be able to do is say, right, from now on, box number 2 is Steve's. Whenever you print, your output will wait for you there.
Right.
Which means if you print late one evening and run out the office, it's still going to be sitting in box 2 until you go and pick it up.
Right.
Now, you can't obviously do that with a photocopier, but in terms of workflow in an office, it means that your prints are always there. They're not going to get lost.
Right.
The nice thing about the Mopier as well is that rather than having to guess when the print is ready, the machine will now come back and tell you that the job is ready for you to go and pick up. Or if it's run out of paper, or somebody's perhaps left one of the paper trays open or the toner cartridge box open, it'll come back and tell you what that particular fault is such that it can be repaired.
Okay. Now you've mentioned you can sort all this out from the desktop, that you can say, I want my document stapled or whatever. Surely this adds quite a lot more complication to the user interface to the printing system. How are you handling that?
Right, okay, well actually, interesting enough, we're finding that it isn't, Steve. You mentioned that it's got this staple option, and as an example, if you want things stapled, you simply, when you press the print icon on the screen, it'll come up with a typical nice graphical display of the printer, and you can then use the mouse to simply click the on or off button for the stapler. Now, if people are not familiar with this particular machine, what we've put on there is something called a toolbox, which allows the user to actually get hints and tips on how to use the machine best and become more efficient in the office using this particular Mopier. So, nice little touch there from Hewlett-Packard that means that people who are even non-technical should be able to use the machine in a very efficient way.
Right, okay. Let me pick up on one almost final point, I think, because you've knocked down just about every argument I've had so far, and that's the simple one of speed.
Yes.
The photocopiers do churn out copies remarkably quickly. How fast is the Mopier?
Yeah, okay, well this is quite a quick machine, Steve. You'll find this is a 24 page per minute machine. Right. It's very high resolution, so we're talking about a 600 dot per inch machine, so you're going to get very, very good graphic quality output. Obviously the speed reduces if you use duplexing, but that'll probably drop down to somewhere around about 20 pages per minute. Right. So one thing which perhaps I can plug, Steve, I think you'll find we talked a bit about the costs. Now the recommended retail price for this machine, excluding VAT, is somewhere around about £6,739. Now if you compare that to some of the photocopiers which have similar functions and similar speeds, you'll find this is very, very competitively priced.
Right, okay. So for individual pricing, obviously our people can go and see their account manager in Elcom Group company.
Absolutely.
What do you perceive as the marketplace for this? Is it going to be corporate, or is it going to be a small business that is just going to put everybody on this one printer, or is it going to be small print shops, for example? Even they could use this sort of thing, surely.
I think probably in your sentence there, Steve, you've summed up where the three main
Sorry,
applications will probably be. You've stolen my thunder a little bit. So yes, certainly we see in smaller companies, people might be putting this in as the sole office printer. Right. So they can use this probably for up to 10 or 12 users. The machine is more than capable of coping with the volume. Right. We guarantee this machine for 100,000 pages per month. So you're going to have to be doing a lot of printing to get anywhere near that.
Indeed.
Obviously in larger corporate offices where perhaps on large floors you might be positioning 1 or 2 Mopiers around the floor for different work groups or different departments to use.
Right.
The final one you've introduced there is quite an interesting one, because nowadays a lot of the data that is actually photocopied is available in digital form, so you can either send jobs to your print shop over the network using email, or you can even take it in on a disk. Now, if you're going to do that, the question is, why do you want to have second-hand quality from the photocopy shop when if you're going to transmit it to them digitally, they can have original copies time after time using a LaserJet printer?
Okay. Well, we are going to have a look at one of these in a moment. So while we wheel it in, because it's quite a large lump of equipment that we're going to have a look at here, we'll take a break and we'll go and have a look and see what's going on in the industry at the moment. So here's Victoria for the time being with this edition's Multimedia Futures.
Precept Software has unveiled their latest attempt to deliver full motion video directly to the desktop. The product promises to provide reliable video data without annoying the already overburdened network managers by clogging up their systems with complex video streams. Now, the Palo Alto-based company is bringing its multicast-based IPTV application to market, and it supports MPEG video data compression. The IP multicast standard lets multiple recipients accept an audio-video stream. The range of applications that can be realised moves beyond mere video conferencing and into news and stock feeds, and eventually serious video programming directly to consumers. Microsoft, Intuit and CheckFree have admitted that their incompatible banking technologies have resulted in market confusion and a reluctance among financial institutions to buy anything at all. So, the three online banking leaders have downed tools on their competing protocols and got their heads together to agree a joint specification that now looks like it will become the de facto industry standard. OFX, the Open Financial Exchange specification, looks set to link banks, brokerages and electronic banking and services companies. Next month, Hitachi launched a digital video camera capable of producing high-quality video footage for editing and viewing on personal computers. The firm claims the camera system, due on February 22nd in Japan, will be the first of its kind to offer video manipulation by personal computer without the need for expensive additional equipment. The MPEG-compatible camera can compress recorded video data to 1/100th of the original size, where conventional digital video cameras compress data to 1/5. It will cost around $1,100 and the accessory kit and storage card for recording video will be $134 and $630 respectively. It plans to market it in the US in March and Europe in June. IWR, the Internet Weather Report, is not, as it might sound, a place to learn whether you're likely to get rained on. IWR reports on the state of the Internet itself. Since December 1993, an organisation called MIDS, Matrix Information and Directory Services, has been filing a daily report on the state of the Internet's internal weather. Specifically, it will tell you about the delays experienced when contacting Internet nodes, including servers and routers in different locations around the world. MIDS regularly polls a list of more than 4,000 nodes. The results are then collated and presented graphically on a selection of maps, which can be found at worldwideweb.mids.org. This data will be interesting to the IT Industry Council, who have warned that unless the telecommunication companies start investing in the global network, the whole thing will collapse. Rhett Dawson, president of the ITIC, told journalists in Washington, D.C. that although the telcos are benefiting from the data revolution, they are not ploughing it back in. The real issue of network usage is how to meet demand in the future, said Dawson, and pointed to the billions of dollars that phone companies get from internet users each year. Yet still, he said, they are not investing in that truly data-friendly network. Morgan Stanley's Internet and New Media analyst has produced a pretty upbeat annual report on the state of Internet advertising. In time, the Internet could prove to be the next mass medium, they say. The Internet has been embraced faster than newspapers, magazines, radio or cable television have been in the past. By playing with figures and adding a little spin, Morgan Stanley reckons that by the year 2000 there will be about 152 million Internet users, and the Internet advertising market could be anything up to $7,600 million. Coral Corporation reckons that you are just dying to start making video phone calls over the Internet using standard telephone lines, and for its next trick is planning to offer the necessary software and camera for about $300. The firm is talking to Vivo Software and Network Solutions Inc., the company that oversees domain name registration on the internet, could pull the plug on as many as 200,000 domain users in the next few weeks if delinquent domain owners do not cough up their registration or maintenance fees. Officially, NSI says it has identified and begun sending out 15-day notices to 100,000 customers identified as being in arrears. Sources close to the company say the actual number of mailings is considerably more. And finally, Microsoft has hired the Muppets. Or to be precise, it signed a 3-year deal with Jim Henson Productions to develop exclusive Muppet-based content for the Microsoft network. The first creatures, including both new characters and the original Muppets, should begin showing up on MSN sometime this summer. Oh yes, and there's a rumour around that one of the new characters might just be named Bill. And that's APT's Multimedia Futures for February 1997. We'll be back in April. Bye for now.
Multimedia Futures is available via the internet. Email info@apt.globalnews.com. Please mention video interface in your inquiry.
Muppets named Bill. I love it to pieces. While you've been listening to Victoria, we've been wheeling in the Hewlett-Packard LaserJet5SI Mopier, and Paul, wheeling in is an appropriate phrase because it is on wheels. It has to be when you see the size of it. This came in 3 very large boxes, and we've just put it together. Because there's a lot of detail here, we're going to have a cameraman follow you around, okay? So give us a conducted tour, would you please, Paul?
Okay, fine, thanks, Steve. Well, we'll start with the input side of the machine, which you can see very clearly here. There are 3 input trays for different size and shapes of paper. The top tray, the first one, takes letter A4 and legal B4 paper, both in either landscape or portrait mode. Second tray will take letter A4 and legal B4 in addition to A3 paper. And the nice thing about this machine is not only handling A3 paper, it'll also do duplex printing on A3, which enables you to fold it in 2 and get A4 size booklets.
Wonderful, yes.
The final input tray here at the front is a 2000 sheet A4 input tray, which ensures that you're not continually filling the machine up with paper.
It gets around that typical laser printer problem of, it's run out of paper, or indeed the photocopier problem that it's run out of paper and so on.
So from the 2000 sheet input tray, the paper is fed through the unit on the side here and up into the printer engine.
Right.
The final input tray we can see here is the auxiliary paper tray. This one is able to take all sort of strange and odd sized pieces of paper that you might want to be printing for diaries, etc. So things like B5 executive, legal, B4, etc. And incidentally, Steve, this is also where the paper feed would go for the envelope feeding unit, the accessory, if you actually bolted it on there.
That's an optional extra that you can attach if you wish.
That's right, yeah.
I'm with you.
So if we close that one down, and the final thing to look at on this side of the machine is actually here where the toner cartridge would go. And it's nice to note that this is the same toner cartridge as the LaserJet5SI, which ensures that you've only got to keep one stock number, one style of toner in stock.
Indeed. So you buy one stock for the office and it just fits everything that's around. Ideal.
Okay. So that's the input side of the machine. What we'll now do is we'll move across to the other side and look at the output bins.
Okay.
Across this side, Steve, we have the output bins and the staple unit as well. But the first thing to note is along the bottom here, a metal bar that links the 2 parts together, which ensures when you roll them together, they clip together very smoothly.
Right, no misalignment or anything like that.
Absolutely.
Right.
So if we take out the top tray here,
I'll hold that.
and then lift up the lid, this will expose the staple system. And there's a small cartridge here, which is very, very easy to input for the next set of staples.
Right, okay. So there's no spools of wire or strips of staples to break in the middle and so on.
Exactly.
Right. This is good news.
If we clip all this together, we'll look down towards the bottom where we'll see all the output bins. As we said earlier in the video, this can be used in a number of ways, either for collating, or we can actually assign these particular boxes for different members of the office staff.
Right, so one of them could be Steve's bin, and all my work appears in that one location always.
Absolutely.
Paul, run us through the technical specifications. We've had a few, but how many DPI, for example?
Okay, this is a 600 by 600 dot print machine, which means that if you're using grayscale or graphic, you're going to get a very high quality output. Couple that with the 24 page per minute that we spoke about earlier in the video, and you see it's a very fast machine. That will drop down very slightly if you use double-sided printing, probably
Right.
to around about 20 pages per minute.
That's still highly acceptable. And 100,000 pages per month that this engine is rated at.
Yeah, well, we have to rate it quite highly, obviously, because with this style of machine, people are expected to do high-volume printing, so you need a very robust engine in there.
Indeed. The whole thing looks built for speed and power and flexibility and so on. Paul, it's a fascinating machine. It's one of, obviously, a new breed. Thank you very much for coming and showing us it today.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for inviting us again, Steve. Thank you.
A pleasure. And Guy Kewney has been globetrotting. Well, I've come hot foot across the studio, but Guy Kewney's come hot foot from MacWorld in San Francisco. Hello, Guy.
Morning again, or afternoon.
Probably both for you. MacWorld, what's the future of Apple, Guy?
Yes, MacWorld. Well, it's the exhibition in San Francisco, which they have there. It's the big one. 80,000 people, it's ridiculous, came to this show. It's sort of, on a scale of Comdex. All because they've got their new management in place and they've got their new operating system in place. And of course, the question which everybody was asking is, does Apple actually have a future as a PC supplier? Now, it's long been my theory that it was a red herring to say that the reason Apple wasn't doing well was that it hadn't cloned its software. It's now cloned its software. Motorola is producing Mac clones like nothing on earth. And as a result of all that, Apple's future is now being doubted by more people than ever before. And the problem has always been, does it have an upgrade path? In other words, if you wanted to buy desktop Macs, what did you move up to when you became an enterprise user? Where was the server strategy? Where was the mid-range strategy? Answer, nothing. Mac operating systems just didn't scale. They didn't have a good network. Basically, they were standalones or linked together on AppleTalk, and that was about it. Now, that wasn't ever true, but it was the perception. You could actually run Macs as clients on NetWare. You can run them as nodes. They do quite good networking, but not straight out the box and not without a great deal of expertise. And the whole point of buying Next, of course, was to overcome that. Well, when I got to MacWorld, I was expecting this to be what everybody was on about. In fact, what I found everybody there was on about was the web. If you walked around the hall, you saw nothing of this fuss about Rhapsody, the new next step-based operating system. What you saw was time after time after time, somebody showing some great web content creating software or web distribution software. There was a company called Akimbo, which showed a thing which means that you can just take your data and put it on the web, no need to generate HTML at all. Really clever, akimbo.com if you look on the web. Dozens and dozens of things. I don't know if you went to Mac 5 years ago, you'd have found those days it would have been all print machinery, typesetters, page layout, all in a corner now.
I remember that era.
That's right. And miles and miles and miles these days of aisles with web stuff, really good stuff, exciting stuff, and a few other odd things as well. And the funny thing is that Apple seems not to get it. It doesn't know that it's got something like 60 to 80% of the web content creation. And so it's not turning this into an advantage with the stock market, and so its stock has been written down and its market share is going down. So they do have a real problem because Rhapsody isn't going to be ready for 18 months at the very earliest, and to be honest, I'll be surprised if it is ready then. They still don't know what it's meant to do. And in the meanwhile, their main advantage is to have the corner hold on this wonderful creative group of people. They're ignoring, they're not catering for it, they don't give them a future. So at the moment it's looking pretty gloomy.
Okay. Well, we'll watch it and see if you're right. You have been very often on that. I read ZDNet News, as if David said own news pages, yes, talking about websites. There were a few quotes of the week a couple of weeks ago that I thought were interesting. There was Compaq saying we've launched a new mini server, Dell saying ours is better, Compaq saying that's sour grapes, and then Mitsubishi Apricot saying, well, we've got one that's better than both of them. What's the Kewney view of mini servers, Guy?
Well, as you know, I'm not a network manager, but I have a lot of friends who are bastard operators from hell, they call themselves, whose object it is to screw up the running of every normal organization.
Of course.
Now, the fact of the matter is that the problems with running a network are not much to do with the hardware. What they are to do with is the people who operate it. Now, the mini server, as Compaq and Apricot and LNX and a couple of other people, Dell included, now saying, is basically a PC with 1 or 2 bits left out, like it doesn't have much of a display card, 1 or 2 bits put in, like it comes with a network card, and some software that sets it up as a network server, either NT usually or NetWare. And as far as I can see, this is just a way of taking a very ordinary PC that would otherwise fetch 700 quid and selling it for maybe 1,000 quid or 1,500 quid. there are a few things you can do. You can put ultra-SCSI, ultra-wide, reliable disks, that sort of thing in. Fundamentally, though, I still don't see any reason to say this is a better deal than an ordinary PC. Plus, you can buy an ordinary PC for that sort of money. The take of the people who creating this market is that there are an awful lot of small to medium-sized enterprises who want to buy a real server, and they are therefore prepared to go out and buy something that says server £1,000 or server 1,500 quid in the case of Mitsubishi. And if you talk to the people who actually install these things, they think it's a real joke, because they say it's not going to enable someone who's got 10 to 50 PCs in a company to afford a real network manager, because these guys are expensive. You'll be able to get someone who can just about tinker around with it. And the best you can really do for these people is have something set up. Somebody's got to come in and do the wiring. As Hugh Jenkins at Compaq said, he would expect 99% of his customers, even at that end, to buy these things through a reseller.
Right.
And I don't think that's going to change. Basically, networks are hard because you've got to get the wiring right, you've got to get the location right, you've got to balance it right, you have to set it up right, and these things all take expertise, and I can't see this being a big help to anybody who doesn't have that expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. I think poo with it.
Maybe we should ask Mitsubishi, Apricot and Compaq to come in and comment on that. Perhaps we'll do. We'll play them your tape and see what they say. In the last edition of the video, we had Toshiba on, and Murray McCurley, and he was talking about a thing called Libretto. I've since seen one, and it's very small, but the power supply is enormous, but they tell me they're going to fix that. You have some views on Libretto. Tell me about that.
Well, it's something I've wanted for a long time. As you know, one of my mottos on portable machines is that the main benchmark is, do you have it with you? Mm. And I carry a Tecra around with me, because that is the easiest way of getting all my PC data with me when I travel, and I travel a lot. And it's often been a case of a sore point to me, in fact an osteopath point, because the weight on my shoulder means that I end up straining muscles and dislocating joints, and these things are heavy. And the question arises, do I actually need a Pentium 120 and a gigabyte of disk when I'm away from my desk? And the answer is definitely no. The problem is, if what I want is a 486 with 300 to 500 meg of disk and 3 or 4 of my main programs, why can't I buy one that has been brought up to date? All the 486s like that look exactly like my Tecra. They weigh the same as my Tecra. They have the same battery to power consumption, because those are old-fashioned boards with old-fashioned big chips on them.
Sure.
And what Libretto is trying to do, I think, is to find a way of taking, say, 2 years ago's technology and making it up to date so that it actually meets the requirements for someone who doesn't want ultimate Pentium Pro Clamorous type machines, but is better than you would otherwise get and is portable. Now, if this thing weighs a pound, which it's supposed to, and it does depend on your taste. Can you type on it? Mm. I think you can just. If you play with something like Windows CE or Scion, that's just a bit too small. This is about an inch wider. I can get my fingers on it. And as long as I can get all my fingers on it, then it becomes a real keyboard. And there's the expansion. You could plug a little portable keyboard in if you want to. What Toshiba has got to get its head round, I think, is that this product is not going to look good on the spec, and they're going to have to market it. They're going to have to persuade people who do get fed up carrying heavy machines around that they don't have to do that anymore. And I mean, most of these people are PowerPoint junkies. They don't need speed.
It's true. Yes. I think you've said to us before, you said on a previous edition, a couple of editions ago, that if an Amstrad PC, whatever it is what will do the job, then why not use it? So, last point, strong crypto. You asked me to ask you about this, so I'm asking Kai.
Cryptically. Well, there's just been an announcement by the American government which annoyed the pants off me, really did. Basically, they've said that they've relented and they're going to allow American companies to export strong cryptography. Strong cryptography means stuff that is stronger than the government can break easily. Now, Phil Zimmerman wrote a program called PGP, which gives you very strong cryptography, again, private key, public key stuff, and if you lock up your data with that, nobody without a key to it can get at it. I say nobody. You could build a special crypto breaking machine, as long as you're not using conventional computer technology, which would break it in weeks to months. But it's as good as uncrackable as you're going to get. It was declared a munition and not exportable. John Gilmore, the guy who set up the internet in the first place, now works for the Freedom Frontier and the Electronic Freedom Frontier. And he has set up a programmer in Greece of all places, sponsored by a philanthropist who lives somewhere else, who is writing a strong crypto thing in Greece, which therefore cannot be controlled by American export laws. So the government in America has now said, oh, it's all right, we're now going to make authorized crypto available. What you're meant to understand from this is that therefore there's no need for Phil Zimmerman and John Gilmore to fool around with their swans and secure wide area networks and things like that. The point is that the strong crypto they're talking about is a 56-bit key. Now, Gilmore knows as much about this as anybody, and when I asked him about this week, he said, well, it's very simple. This is the year when 56-bit crackers will become public domain. Uh-huh. He expects several to appear on the market before the end of the year as shareware. Right. In other words, if somebody sends you a thing encrypted with a 56-bit key, you just operate it. Mm-hmm. It may take you a day. Right. It's not crypto anymore.
Okay, so is PGP, which is pretty good privacy, is that actually still a better bet?
A much better bet, yes. And it's available from European sources. It's absurd. I went to a show in San Jose where they were talking about this on the internet world, and they were giving these disks with all these crypto things on them, RSA algorithms on. And we were all there. Nobody thought to ask us, are you a loyal American citizen? Do you come from somewhere else? Are you perhaps, who shall we say, even Mexican or possibly an American subversive? All the people who were there were assumed to be in America and therefore they're entitled to it, whereas governments over here can't. So it's a ludicrous situation, especially when a lot of the stuff was written outside America in the first place.
Right. So it looks like the American government trying to claw back control.
They're trying to get back, yes.
Basically. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Guy, it's been fascinating, as it always is. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Nice to see you again.
And that is Elcom's Video Interface, edition 26. We'll be back again in 2 months, and we'll see you then. Bye for now.